Saw dudes, just as expected, I am releasing the level cap test footage following the dedicated Protea Prime build guide. I had high hopes for this test, seeing that Protea can perform well in all types of content. I'll put the end at the beginning. I was not disappointed. Like I mentioned in the prior video, Protea does not excel in one particular aspect, but rather does many things well. Her flexible kit and playstyle make her a strong choice in level cap Void Cascade and leave a lot of room for improvement. So less yapping, more build crafting. Let's get started. The dedicated build video featured the Protea Prime build shown on screen. Instead of keeping Temporal Anchor, I subsumed Roar over it for better damage scaling for weapons and Blaze Artillery. The aura for this build was Growing Power to increase ability strength. Ability strength is pivotal to increasing outgoing damage either with Blaze Artillery or Roar. I'll also take this time to discuss not using Brief Respite or Augur set mods for Protea, since they interfere with her shield satellite shield gating buffs. If you have a teammate who is using Brief Respite, explain the issue to them and offer to cover them with free shield satellites for the duration of the mission. The Exilus slot was taken up by Prime Sure-Footed to ensure that knockdowns were a non-issue. Because this loadout lacks Temporal Anchor as a death gate, all forms of crowd control minimization are necessary. Prime Continuity increases ability duration, which is incredibly important for Protea since it affects all of her abilities. It also directly impacts the damage scaling of Blaze Artillery, meaning that it pulls double duty on the build. Prime Flow increases energy reserves for easier spamming, which will become apparent in the footage. Blind Rage increases ability strength, drastically increasing the shield points gained from shield satellites, base damage of Blaze Artillery, Dispensary's extra item drop chance, and Roar's damage multiplier. The negative efficiency is offset by Dispensary and Arcane Steadfast. Archon Stretch and Overextended increase ability range, which affects the firing distance for Blaze Artillery turrets. Archon Stretch has the added bonus of granting 2 energy per second for 5 seconds upon applying an electricity status effect to an enemy with an ability. This can be procced by companions, and while it doesn't currently work with this loadout, it is worth mentioning. Equilibrium is mandatory on the build. This mod allows 2 out of 3 drops from Dispensary to grant energy, meaning that the negative ability efficiency from Blind Rage is no longer a problem. Without the mod, energy will become an issue. Trust me, I've tried this out, even with other energy sources. Precision Intensify grants Protea's 4th ability, Roar, a 90% ability strength bonus. This offsets the negative from Overextended and allows Roar's double dipping bonus on damage over time effects to shine, which makes Blaze Artillery an insanely strong tool for thinning crowds. The final mod, Archon Vitality, is only used for its doubled heat proc application, which further scales the outgoing damage from Blaze Artillery. As I mentioned earlier, Roar is the Helminth ability subsumed over Temporal Anchor. Roar's straightforward damage buff is great for weapons, but the ability truly shines with damage over time applications. It is considered a faction damage bonus, meaning it is applied twice when calculating status damage like heat. Blaze Artillery and the equipped primary weapon, Coda Bassocyst, greatly benefit from this ability. The arcane combo I used is Multificiency and Arcane Steadfast. Multificiency grants ability duration, which affects Blaze Artillery's maximum scaling. Arcane Steadfast reduces energy expenditure by granting a chance to have the next 3 ability casts to not cost energy after an initial ability cast. This arcane allows for much better spamability and plays well into the spell casting nature of Protea. Just like in the dedicated build guide, I use 1 Tauforge Amber Shard for casting speed and 4 Tauforge Crimson Shards for ability duration. The casting speed is mandatory on Protea, since she spams abilities and because the animations themselves are a window for enemies to kill you. As you probably have come to understand by this point, ability duration is important, so I won't continue to drive the point home. Now we have the knockoff Assassin's Creed knife thingy. Power Drain increases the ability strength of the next ability cast by 50% upon executing a mercy kill. Ability strength isn't the biggest deal on Protea, unlike ability duration, but any extra we can get is nice. Out of Sight provides some safety, blinding enemies within an 18-meter radius upon performing a mercy kill. Blood for Life grants a 100% chance to drop a health orb on a mercy kill, which plays well with Equilibrium. Blood for Energy is another great alternative if you don't have Blood for Life. The primary weapon for this run was the Coda Bassocyst with an electricity valence bonus. I chose this weapon over Cedo Prime because Protea requires a lot of setup in the field to be effective. Cedo requires its alt fire to be used on enemies before engagement for the best performance, which is time that Protea cannot usually afford when in level cap. Coda Bassocyst just rips from the start and has 2 damage over time procs, that being Blast and Electricity, that Roar can affect, making it a great candidate for this loadout. I still used Epitaph Prime for its status proccing ability. It was used a fair bit during the run, especially when facing a heavy group of enemies. The Force Cold procs were a godsend and made it easy for me to reposition around enemies when stuff got messy, and the Corrosive procs softened enemy armor to reduce the time to kill. Secondary Fortifier added another layer of survivability and was a nice way to prevent status effects with Overguard. Instead of Praetos, I use Okina Prime Incarnon since it is the weapon that was released with Protea Prime. The evolutions I used were Seeing Red, Swordsman's Celerity, and Survivor's Edge. The main build itself is fairly standard, focusing on a hybrid approach. Crit chance and crit damage are relatively high and allow for quick shredding when used in conjunction with Epitaph Prime. The companion this time around is not a Panzervolpaphyla. Instead, I use Nautilus Prime. Coordinate groups of enemies within 30 meters every 15 seconds, which allows for Blaze Artillery to tag multiple targets with every shot, increasing its damage. Assault Mode allows Nautilus Prime to attack enemies and prime them. Coolant Leak slows enemies that get too close with cold procs. Mystic Bond allows Protea to cast an ability for free every 5 abilities that Nautilus Prime casts. Calculated Redirection increases the Sentinel shields enough to make constant use of Reinforced Bond's fire rate buff. Manifold Bond allows Nautilus to spam Cordon even more when killing enemies affected by 3 or more stats effects. Synth Deconstruct causes enemies injured by Nautilus to have a 25% chance to drop a health orb on death, which pairs perfectly with Equilibrium, and Vacuum and Regen are quality of life mods. The weapon I chose to use on Nautilus Prime is the Helstrum. I just use it as a viral primer since it has exceptional status chance. The build on screen is a pretty solid baseline, minus the unranked Vigilante Armaments mod. I just didn't want to sink in another Forma. Madurai is the focus school I used, since it is the best for level cap Void Cascade. Void Strike and Void Fuel are backups, in case I go into last stand with my operator. Phoenix Talons was only really good for Okina Prime Incarnon, since Coda Bassocyst primarily deals elemental damage. Sling Strength was amazing for Roar, and increased outgoing damage by a lot, and it didn't need to be spammed all the time to feel useful. The amp I used was a standard 147, also known as a Certus Brace, Red Black Prism, and Fad Scaffold. This is the amp I always use, and I highly recommend you try it out for level cap runs. I used Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Time to talk about the run. This run was a bit more demanding than expected, and it quickly became clear that Protea is a frame that rewards active play, but punishes complacency. I'll start with the bad news first before moving on to what went right, because while there were some shining moments, a few frustrations definitely made themselves known. To begin, Protea's need to spam abilities constantly became tiring over time. The rotation between Blaze Artillery, Dispensary, and Grenade Fan needs to be maintained almost without pause to keep her momentum going. The somewhat long animations do not help with this, even with the Tauforge Amber Archon Shards speeding things up. During those moments of casting, there's a window where enemies can close the distance or shoot you before your abilities take effect. In endurance runs, this can spiral into a quick death if you lose rhythm. The energy situation, while manageable most of the time, can still dip if you mistime a Dispensary drop or get unlucky with Arcane Steadfast procs. Arcane Steadfast, Equilibrium, and Dispensary together smooth things out, but it's still something that demands your full attention. The Blaze Artillery turrets are another point of contention. They take a while to ramp up in damage, and their limited line of fire is noticeable in most tile sets. The short duration amplifies this problem, forcing even more ability usage to maintain output. The 130-degree firing arc feels restrictive, especially in cramped areas where enemies can flank or hide behind geometry. It's disappointing because the damage potential is there, but the turret behavior limits their consistency. I really wish the firing arc could be modified by range mods or at least widened a bit to improve flexibility, but it's wishful thinking for now. Finally, the shield satellites from Grenade Fan can be frustrating to interact with. Picking them up is not always reliable, and that inconsistency can lead to random deaths. Once your shields break, you have about a 2.5 second window to grab another one, but sometimes Protea just refuses to pick them up. It's more of a gameplay annoyance than a flaw in the kit itself, but it becomes noticeable when you are in the middle of heavy crossfire. The mechanic works beautifully when it behaves, keeping the shield loop alive, but when it bugs out, it's infuriating. Now for the good news. Protea's overall damage output is fantastic once you get things rolling. The Blaze Artillery turrets, while finicky, are excellent for supporting allies or just thinning out large groups of enemies between rotations. The ramp up damage may take a second, but once they get going, they melt enemies efficiently, especially when boosted by Roar or status procs from Epitaph Prime. The stacking heat procs add solid crowd control, and being able to deploy 3 turrets at once allows for either focus fire or wide area coverage. Watching entire rooms clear from overlapping turret fire never gets old, and it feels rewarding after maintaining the ability loop. The shield satellites are another standout feature of Protea's kit. They are lifesavers in high level content both for Protea and for the squad. Many frames start to struggle with survivability once the enemies reach level cap or even below at level 5000, but Protea herself provides a steady stream of protection. Allies rarely need to worry about their shields dropping because she leaves shield satellites scattered all over the battlefield. It's a passive layer of defense that benefits everyone nearby and makes Protea an invaluable support frame during long missions. Finally, Dispensary ties the whole kit together. It ensures that energy issues are almost non-existent, allowing constant ability uptime. The abundance of energy and health orbs synergizes perfectly with Equilibrium, making Protea nearly self-sustaining. On top of that, the ammo drops help keep teammates stocked, especially when using heavy weapons or ammo-hungry weapons. It keeps the entire team fueled and ready, which makes a noticeable difference in the flow of the mission. Dispensary turns chaotic battles into controlled engagements where resources are always available. Now, the begging question. Can I recommend Protea Prime for level cap Void Cascade? Yes, I can, and honestly, it's not a hard hard question at all. If I take things at face value, Protea Prime is not the best level cap Warframe, but she is up there. Her versatility and flexibility make her incredibly attractive as an option. As she provides a lot of team value without being completely relegated to the support role. Despite her issues with Blaze Artillery, they aren't game-breaking, nor completely egregious. I feel that Protea is a frame most newer players can get early on and learn to appreciate in all forms of content in the game, meaning that she's getting an outstanding rating from me. Basically, Protea has mastered the art of shield balls and chucking fire at people with mechanical abominations. Go get her, you won't regret it. I hope this level cap content video helped, and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you all for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.